Time now for a look at what's making headlines in today's newspapers. And for that, we're joined here on Step by Laurent Berchticker. Laurent, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Let's start then with the Israeli press, which has obviously been reacting to that exchange of fire between Hezbollah and Israel. Tell us what you've seen.
Well, Israeli right-wing daily The Jerusalem Post is headlining on these clashes, describing the situation as one of tense quiet at the moment. The paper has several articles analyzing the situation, including one piece looking at Nasrallah and Netanyahu and whether they have any interest in escalating things further. We see here the two men, the leader of Hezbollah and the Israeli prime minister, described as two men with great survival instincts, and the article argues that it's unlikely that they want to push this towards a full-blown war. In the case of Hassan Nasrallah, for instance, the big difference with 2006, when he was already leading Hezbollah and got into a war with Israel, is that Hezbollah is now a legitimate political party in Lebanon. It's part of the political institutions, and it would lose a lot of support if it dragged the country into a war. Netanyahu, meanwhile, knows it's very easy to start a war, according to the article, but also knows it's very easy to lose popular support as soon as casualties start to mount. Therefore, and with 2 weeks to go before Election Day in Israel, he's keen to avoid any major escalations. Now, another Israeli newspaper, Haaretz, center-left, is also coming to a similar conclusion, arguing that veteran Hassan Nasrallah now has a firm grip on his party and would be able to restrain those in Hezbollah with maybe more radical ideas. The article argues that this poses a dilemma for Israel. We know that Hezbollah has been manufacturing high-precision missiles in Lebanon, and well, the question for Israel is, do we attack them now and risk this open war, or do we wait and risk Hezbollah getting stronger?
Quite a question, Laurent. Let's bank that, though, for the moment and move on to one of our other top stories today. That's the situation in Hong Kong. Protests are continuing despite the arrest of several prominent activists over the weekend. Tell us, how are media in China covering what's happening?
Well, a lot depends on which media we're talking about. We see, for instance, this pro-Beijing paper, China Daily, which continues to cast the protesters as rioters and the protests as expressions of unbridled violence. We see that those protesters, according to this paper, will stop at nothing to overthrow the legitimate government of Hong Kong. But if we take a look, for instance, at the South China Morning Post, which is a Hong Kong-based independent news outlet, the message is quite different. The opinion piece is actually warning protesters here of a possible military intervention by Beijing, which has been flexing its muscles in recent weeks and showcasing its military strength. It's also been describing increasingly what's going on in Hong Kong as a revolution of color, which is drawing a parallel to what happened in the 2000s in the Balkans, and also implying that there are foreign forces behind this trying to overthrow or destabilize China. This, of course, means that, the author is asking how long until Beijing runs out of patience and is encouraging protesters to make it clear that they're not seeking any kind of regime change in China and that this is purely an internal matter to Hong Kong.
You know, this story is getting lots of coverage around the world, isn't it, including in the United States?
Well, that's correct. And I selected this opinion piece by The Atlantic, which I found was very interesting, looking at the role of police brutality in this crisis. The article argues that police have lost all respect by local population in Hong Kong, especially after some incidents where we saw they didn't act when some thugs were beating up protesters in the subway and so forth. Now they're seen as just the strong arm of the Chinese government. And even fear and hatred against police is fueling even more violence in demonstrations.
Finally, for you then, Laurent, a bit of football. Apparently, after long summer of speculation, it seems that Neymar is staying here in Paris.
It's been the summer's longest and biggest transfer saga, and well, now with less than a day left before the window closes, it seems that Neymar will be staying put. French daily Le Monde publishing an article looking back at the two controversial years since the Brazilian star joined Paris, at his downfall from world's most expensive player who was supposed to be the messiah for PSG, bringing the team to new heights, to now this overpaid and perpetually injured player who many in the club hope to see leave. Now, with the window closing and Barcelona, which was expected to make a bid, not in the end making a move, it seems that Neymar will be staying and PSG will have to find ways to reintegrate their superstar into their team.
We'll see how it goes. Laurent, thank you very much indeed. Laurent Bersticker there with a look at today's newspapers. We'll have another press review for you in an hour or so on the programme.